Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed audience, welcome. Today we are thrilled to present a captivating tale of hidden identities, corporate intrigue, and a thrilling reversal of fortune, the CEO's undercover daughter. Before we begin, please hit that subscribe button to join us on this extraordinary journey. Now please lend us your ears. The hum of Horizon Corp's Manhattan headquarters was a symphony of ambition, a cacophony of hushed deals and clacking keyboards. Yet amidst this vibrant performance, Mai moved like a muted note, barely registering on the grand score. At 22, her appearance was a deliberate camouflage, hair pulled back in a severe, no-nonsense bun, oversized spectacles framing eyes that seemed to absorb every detail without betraying a flicker of emotion, and clothes that blended into the sterile beige of the office like a chameleon on a dusty wall. She was the quintessential intern, quiet, diligent, easily overlooked, a ghost in the machine of corporate success. Her silence, a self-imposed exile, was often misunderstood for timidity. Colleagues, draped in the latest designer fashion, would glide past her desk, their conversations a sparkling tapestry of weekend getaways to the Hamptons or the latest high-end restaurant reviews. Mai, on the other hand, arrived precisely at 7:30 a.m., an hour before anyone else, by a bus route that snaked through the city's forgotten boroughs. Her lunch was always a humble, home-prepared meal, carefully packed in a worn, floral-patterned container, a stark contrast to the gourmet takeout enjoyed by others. She was the last to leave, long after the city lights had begun to mimic stars across the office windows, her silhouette a lone figure against the glow of her computer screen. This routine wasn't merely diligence, it was a carefully constructed fortress, designed to render her invisible. Her rented apartment in a modest neighborhood was a cleverly devised decoy, and the ancient, cracked smartphone she carried had its primary SIM card removed, a digital cloak against unseen observers. For 6 months, she had been an uncredited spy, observing, learning, and immersing herself in the very fabric of Horizon Corp from its lowest rung. Her motive, a complex tapestry woven from loyalty, justice, and a simmering, quiet fury, lay hidden beneath layers of feigned indifference. The scorn was a daily ritual, as predictable as the morning coffee. Manager Lynn, a woman whose perfectly coiffed blonde hair and sharp designer suits spoke of a life of effortless luxury, rarely bothered to hide her disdain for Mai's understated presence. Her favor was reserved for interns who possessed the right connections, the right sparkle. "My darling," she'd purr, her voice laced with saccharine venom. "Are you sure you belong in this department? Our clients expect a certain aesthetic." The marketing team, a cluster of boisterous millennials, found endless amusement at Mai's outdated phone. "Seriously, Mai? Does that even have a camera? It looks like it belongs in a museum," they'd snicker, their laughter echoing through the open-plan office. Each barb was a tiny cut, a prick at the invisible armor Mai wore. But the most relentless tormentor was Brandon. Once a rising star in Horizon Corp's external relations department, he now worked for a key partner company, yet he clung to his old haunts, his presence a constant reminder of Mai's perceived insignificance. Brandon was a peacock, all preening charm and condescending smiles, his expensive watch catching the fluorescent lights as he gesticulated wildly. "Still the quiet intern, Mai," he'd bellow, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Heard you haven't secured a full-time position yet? Such a waste of youth, isn't it? Perhaps you should consider a career that doesn't require ambition." Or, with a sneer, "Don't hold up the team just because you're not used to high-end equipment like this, huh?" Mai would simply offer a polite, almost imperceptible nod, her lips curving to that familiar, faint smile that seemed to mask a universe of unexpressed thoughts. Behind her, the whispers would follow, labeling her a clinger-on, desperate for resume experience. Her stoicism was a shield, but beneath it, a quiet storm brewed, fueled by both the injustices she endured and a growing, unsettling certainty about something far larger at play. The very first twist, a whisper in the wind that would soon become a gale, occurred on a Tuesday afternoon. Mai, buried in spreadsheets that seemed to hum with silent secrets, noticed it. A small, almost imperceptible discrepancy in the procurement reports from the last quarter. A digital ghost in the machine, a transaction too perfectly rounded, too neatly filed, hinting at an insidious corruption. No one else seemed to notice it, their eyes glazed over by the sheer volume of data. Mai, however, felt a chill crawl up her spine. This wasn't just sloppy accounting, it was a carefully orchestrated deception. She began to meticulously note our findings, a clandestine ledger of anomalies, sharing nothing with her direct supervisor, Miss Davies, who often seemed too preoccupied with her next high-profile lunch to notice the rot festering beneath the surface. Suddenly, a shadow fell across her desk. Mr. Jenkins, the elderly security guard, a man whose presence was as unremarkable as the potted plants in the lobby, stood beside her. He was a fixture, a part of the building's worn fabric, always there but never truly seen, his face a roadmap of quiet, solitary years. He seemed to move through the corporate labyrinth like a spirit, his footsteps barely audible. Without a word, he gently placed a folded piece of paper on her keyboard, his gnarled hand brushing hers for a fleeting second. The paper, a torn corner of a discarded memo, contained only a single, crudely written line. Double-check the last quarter's procurement report. Someone's been bleeding the company dry for a long time. Mai's heart gave a sudden, unexpected lurch. She looked up, but Mr. Jenkins had already turned, his back retreating into the endless corridor, his figure dissolving into the general hum of the office. She stared at the note, then at his disappearing silhouette, 1,000 questions blooming in her mind like a sudden, unexpected spring. The game, she realized, was far more intricate than she had ever imagined. This was not just about proving her worth. It was about uncovering a truth that had festered in the shadows, and Mai, the unassuming shadow herself, was now holding the first critical piece of the puzzle. The very air around her seemed to thicken, charged with the weight of unspoken secrets and the chilling prospect of what she might soon uncover. The following afternoon, the city wept. Rain lashed against the towering glass facade of Horizon Corp, each droplet a tiny drumbeat against Mai's window, mirroring the disquiet building within her. The enigmatic note from Mr. Jenkins, tucked securely in her blazer pocket, felt heavier than a lead weight. Someone's been bleeding the company dry for a long time. The words echoed, giving chilling context to the financial discrepancies she'd already unearthed. Her initial mission, a quiet surveillance of corporate culture, had metastasized into something far more dangerous. The image of Mr. Jenkins, his wise, tired eyes meeting hers for a fleeting second, offered both solace and a fresh layer of mystery. He was an unassuming oracle, a silent guardian in a world of glittering deception, and his intervention spoke of a deeper, long-standing rot.
The thought of revealing her findings, even to her father, Mr. Thompson, felt like pulling a thread from a fragile tapestry. Their agreement was clear. Mai would immerse herself, learn from the ground up, experience the raw, unfiltered reality of the corporate world without the protective cloak of her lineage. This was her crucible, a test of resilience and observation. To break that pact, to admit she was out of her depth, would be a betrayal of the very independence she craved. Besides, the note hinted at a deep-seated problem, one that likely predated her internship. She needed more proof, more understanding of the shadows that lengthened across Horizon Corp's pristine hallways. A low, insistent thrum reverberated through the building, signaling the end of the workday. Mai finished the last of her quarterly reports for the sales department, the numbers blurring momentarily as the fatigue settled into her bones. She stretched, her muscles aching from hours hunched over her desk, a small price for the insights she was meticulously gathering. She reached for her worn floral lunchbox, the only splash of color in her otherwise muted existence, and prepared to descend into the city's rush hour. She pressed the elevator call button for the ground floor. The doors of the executive elevator, usually reserved for the higher echelons, slid open. To her mild surprise, Brandon stood inside, already hitting his floor. His expensive suit, tailored to perfection, seemed to gleam even in the elevator's artificial light. A faint scent of his exorbitant cologne, sharp and confident, filled the enclosed space. He was the antithesis of Mai, loud where she was quiet, flashy where she was subtle, a man who believed the world revolved around his next power play. The air between them, always a thin, taut wire, seemed to hum with unspoken animosity. "Well, well, well," Brandon drawled, his voice a polished sneer. "If it isn't the quiet little intern, Mai. Still plugging away, I see. Heard you haven't managed to snag a full-time spot yet. Such a shame. All that dedication. One would think Horizon Corp appreciates ambition." He ran a hand over his slicked-back hair, his eyes glinting with a self-satisfied malice. His expensive wristwatch, a beacon of his success, caught the light as he gestured vaguely around the small space. Mai simply offered her standard, almost imperceptible nod, her eyes briefly meeting his, a cool, unreadable gaze that seemed to pierce his polished facade. He visibly bristled, his veneer of casual contempt momentarily ruffled by her unwavering composure. The elevator began its descent, a smooth, almost imperceptible drop. Then, without warning, a violent jolt ripped through the cabin, throwing both Mai and Brandon off balance. A loud, metallic crash echoed, followed by an ominous grinding sound. The lights flickered, struggled, then died, plunging them into near-total darkness. The emergency lights, dim and sickly yellow, blinked on, casting long, distorted shadows that danced like trapped specters. The sudden silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic drumming of Brandon's heart against his ribs. "What the hell was that?" Brandon shrieked, his voice stripped of its usual bravado, now thin and reedy. He fumbled for his phone, his hand trembling, his composure evaporating like mist in the sun. "No signal! Damn it, no signal!" He pounded on the call button, his panic a tangible, suffocating presence. Mai, in stark contrast, remained remarkably calm. Her face, illuminated by the feeble emergency light, was a mask of serene focus. She pulled out a small utilitarian flashlight from her worn satchel, a testament to her preparedness, a stark contrast to Brandon's flashy but useless tech. Its beam cut through the gloom, steady and resolute, as she aimed it at the control panel. "Stay calm, Brandon. It's likely a sudden power surge or a mechanical fault. We need to hit the emergency call button," she said, her voice a soothing balm against his rising hysteria. He stared at her, utterly flummoxed by her composure. You're so calm. Aren't you scared? What if it falls?" His words trailed off, a nascent fear chilling the air.
The unexpected twist, a ripple in the fabric of her hidden plan, occurred precisely then. Her old phone, tucked deep in her pocket, vibrated insistently. The screen, briefly illuminated by the flashlight, displayed a cryptic message from an unknown number. "Plan adjusted. Elevator will be stuck for another 15 minutes. Do not act yet. Mr. Jenkins is below. We need to confirm his involvement." Mai's breath hitched. "Mr. Jenkins is below." The words echoed like a coded message, confirming the security guard's direct link to the unfolding drama. This wasn't merely a mechanical failure. It was a deliberate orchestration, a meticulously timed event. Her mind raced, connecting the dots. Mr. Jenkins' note, this message, the strange anomaly in the procurement reports. Someone was pulling strings, manipulating events, and they were feeding her information, guiding her. But who, and why the 15-minute delay? She quickly swiped to dismiss the message, her movements swift and practiced. But Brandon, ever the opportunist, had been watching, his eyes now wide with fear, catching a fleeting glimpse of the screen. "Who are you talking to? What was that strange message? Mr. Jenkins, what about him?" Mai met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "Just spam, Brandon. You know how annoying those can be." She feigned a weary sigh, hoping to deflect his attention, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Brandon's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something calculating amidst his fear. He wouldn't let this go. The thought was chilling, a new layer of complexity to her already precarious position. The air in the elevator grew thick, humid with the trapped heat and Brandon's increasing anxiety. He paced the small space like a caged animal, muttering to himself, running a hand through his now disheveled hair. "This is ridiculous. I have a dinner reservation, A very important client is waiting. Does this company even care about its employees? You seem awfully relaxed, Mai. Is this what you're used to? No air conditioning? No signal? Maybe you're better suited for less demanding environments." Mai remained seated on the floor, leaning against the cold metal wall, her book open in her lap, though her eyes scanned the dimly lit ceiling. "Panic won't make the elevator move faster, Brandon," she replied, her voice soft but firm, a stark contrast to his agitated whispers. "And I assure you, I'm quite used to challenging environments. They often reveal more than comfortable ones." Her subtle retort, a quiet jab at his privileged life, seemed to sting him. He scowled, but offered no further argument, retreating into a corner, muttering to himself. As the minutes dragged on, each second a heavy, drawn-out eternity, Mai's mind worked furiously. The message confirming Mr. Jenkins' involvement cemented her suspicion. The security guard wasn't just a concerned employee, he was a key player, somehow connected to this larger scheme. And the person sending the messages, an orchestrator, a puppeteer in the shadows. This wasn't just a corporate leak, it was a deeper conspiracy, carefully unraveling. The elevator, a steel cage suspended between floors, had become a perfect, isolated stage. It was designed to expose Brandon, to force a confrontation. But it also exposed Mai, putting her at direct risk. The tension was a living thing, a palpable entity in the cramped space, and Mai knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the next few minutes would change everything. The faint glimmer of the emergency lights seemed to pulse, counting down to a revelation that would shatter the facade of Horizon Corp, and perhaps her own carefully constructed invisibility. The air inside the trapped elevator grew heavy, thick with the unvented fear emanating from Brandon. Each passing second seemed to stretch into an eternity, a slow, agonizing crawl towards an unknown fate. The faint, sickly yellow glow of the emergency lights painted grotesque shadows on the walls, making the claustrophobic space feel even smaller, like a coffin slowly lowering into the earth. Brandon, a man usually so meticulously put together, was a disheveled wreck, his expensive suit rumpled, his hair sticking to his sweaty forehead. He resembled a grand, ornate clock that had suddenly stopped ticking, its gears grinding to an agonizing halt. He continued his pathetic litany of complaints, a litany of ruined appointments and missed opportunities, his voice growing hoarser with each desperate plea into the silence. "Is anyone out there? Can anyone hear me? This is ridiculous. I have a client waiting. A very important deal," he wailed, his fists pounding weakly on the unresponsive metal doors. His desperation was a stark, almost theatrical contrast to Mai's composed stillness. Mai, however, remained rooted to her spot, an anchor in a rising tide of panic. Her book, a slim volume on quantum physics, lay open on her lap, a silent testament to her unruffled demeanor. Yet her eyes, usually shielded by her simple glasses, occasionally flickered to her worn wristwatch, then to the unyielding elevator doors. A calculated anticipation shimmered beneath her calm exterior. The message from the unknown sender had been precise. Plan adjusted. Elevator will be stuck for another 15 minutes. Do not act yet. Mr. Jenkins is below. The 15 minutes, she noted, were almost up. Her heart, a steady drum against her ribs, quickened ever so slightly. She felt a strange mix of apprehension and exhilaration, like an actor waiting for their cue, knowing the spotlight was about to find them. This wasn't merely a breakdown. It was a stage being set, and Mai was ready for her part. Suddenly, a resonant metallic groan echoed from above, followed by the unmistakable jarring sound of heavy tools at work. The very structure of the elevator seemed to tremble. Then came the hopeful scraping and clanging of metal on metal, growing steadily louder. A thin sliver of brighter light appeared at the top of the doors, widening incrementally, as if the very world outside was being unveiled, piece by painful piece. Voices, muffled at first, then clearer, floated down through the widening gap. "We're here. Is everyone all right in there?"
Hold on. Brandon, as if jolted by an electric current, sprang to life. His fear momentarily forgotten, replaced by a primal urge for escape. He lunged towards the opening. "Yes, we're here! Get us out!" he yelled, raw with relief. He was ready to push past anyone, to be the first one to breathe the free air of the hallway. He symbolized the ruthless, self-serving ambition that often defined Horizon Corp's cutthroat environment. But just as the doors groaned open wide enough for a figure to squeeze through, revealing the concerned faces of the rescue team and the bright, jarring lights of the hallway, Mai, with a sudden resolute shift in her posture, her eyes fixed on the emerging figure, uttered a single word. A word that cut through the cacophony of the rescue operation, through Brandon's desperate cries, and pierced the very air with an unexpected, almost sacred force. "Dad." The word, soft yet utterly unequivocal, hung in the air like a chime, reverberating through the cramped space of the elevator and out into the bustling hallway. Brandon, poised on the brink of freedom, froze. His outstretched hand, reaching for the light, dropped as if severed. The rescue workers, poised to assist, paused, their tools momentarily forgotten. The security guards, present for protocol, stood stone still, their faces contorted in expressions of utter disbelief. And then, a towering figure stepped fully into view. Not a rescue worker, but a man whose presence commanded immediate attention, whose aura seemed to quiet the entire floor. It was Mr. Thompson, the CEO of Horizon Corp. His impeccably tailored suit, usually a symbol of his power, now seemed slightly askew, a telltale sign of his haste and concern.
His distinguished gray hair was a little rumpled, and his usually stern, analytical eyes were etched with a raw, undeniable worry that melted away as they landed on Mai. He wasn't looking at Brandon, or the rescue team, or the gaping elevator shaft. His gaze was solely, intensely fixed on his daughter. "My daughter, are you all right? Are you hurt?" Mr. Thompson's voice, usually reserved for board meetings and weighty pronouncements, was thick with paternal concern, a low rumble of relief and love. He reached for Mai, his strong hands gently cupping her face, examining her as if searching for any hidden Shonhan scars. He then pulled her into a tight, protective embrace, his head bowed slightly, as if whispering reassurances only she could hear. The air in the hallway became an unbreathing tableau. Time seemed to warp, stretching and twisting around the impossible scene unfolding before their eyes. The unassuming intern, the one they had all casually dismissed as a background character, was being embraced by the formidable CEO himself, called daughter with an intimacy that left no room for doubt. Whispers, like startled birds, began to flutter through the stunned onlookers, a low collective murmur of, "His daughter? The intern? Impossible." Brandon, who moments before had been frantic for escape, now stood transfixed, his face a grotesque mask of shock and dawning horror. The color had drained from his complexion, leaving it an ashen gray, his bravado utterly annihilated. His jaw hung slack, his eyes wide and vacant, as if he were staring at a ghost, or perhaps at his own undoing. Every cutting remark, every dismissive glance, every cruel jest he had aimed at Mai over the past months replayed in his mind, each word a hammer blow against his own carefully constructed world. The bitter irony tasted like ash in his mouth. The hanger-on, the waste of youth, the less demanding environment girl, was the very heir to the empire he desperately sought to impress, to exploit. Manager Lin, whose perfectly sculpted eyebrows usually remained impervious to surprise, now wore an expression of comical disbelief, her mouth slightly agape, a faint blush creeping up her neck. The marketing team, usually so quick with their snide comments, stood with their phones still clutched in their hands, their usual bravado replaced by an almost palpable silence. Their mockery of Mai's old phone now felt like a direct insult to the CEO's family. Mai, nestled safely in her father's arms, looked up, her gaze sweeping across the faces of her now stunned colleagues. Her expression was calm, almost serene, a stark contrast to the emotional maelstrom that had just been unleashed. There was no triumph in her eyes, no vindication, just a quiet, profound understanding of the moment. This wasn't about gloating, it was about the unveiling of truth. The curtain had been pulled back, and the spotlight, for the very first time, was fully on her. The long, solitary journey she had embarked on, the quiet observations, the cryptic note, the manipulated elevator, had all led to this singular, electrifying climax. The fading shadow had just cast the longest, most unforgettable shadow of all. And the story, she knew, had just truly begun. The air in the executive lobby, moments after Mr. Thompson's thunderclap declaration, still crackled with residual shock. It was as if a silent bomb had detonated, leaving behind a profound, lingering silence that deafened the ordinary hum of the corporate world. Mai, her hand still held firmly in her father's hand, navigated the sea of stunned faces with a calm that bordered on preternatural. Her composure was a stark, almost unnerving counterpoint to the emotional tremors rippling through the onlookers. She offered a series of small, almost imperceptible nods, acknowledgments of the bewildered stares, the slack jaws, and the sudden, awkward shifts of weight from people who had, moments ago, been her casual tormentors. Brandon remained frozen, a statue carved from pure, unadulterated dread. The color had not yet returned to his face, leaving it the stark white of a freshly bleached sheet.
His styled hair, once a symbol of his vanity, now looked almost ridiculous, a misplaced crown on a fallen king. Every cutting remark he'd ever flung at Mai, every dismissive glance, every patronizing smile now echoed in the hollow chambers of his mind, each word a cruel, self-inflicted wound. He was a man drowning in a sudden, unexpected flood of his own making, his carefully constructed reality crumbling around him like a sandcastle before an angry tide. The irony was a bitter, metallic taste in his mouth. The quiet intern, the waste of youth, the girl he confidently declared fit only for less demanding environments, was not just the CEO's daughter, but an active, intelligent force within the very corporation he sought to underline. The thought was a venomous serpent coiling in his gut. Mr. Thompson, finally releasing Mai's hand, turned to face the assembled crowd. His gaze, usually warm and paternal when fixed on Mai, hardened as it swept across the astonished faces of his employees and, most pointedly, landed on Brandon. His voice, calm yet imbued with an almost electric authority, sliced through the stunned silence. "I see many surprised faces here, and perhaps a few enlightened ones." He paused, allowing his words to sink in, like pebbles dropped into still water. "This is my daughter, Mai. She sought my permission to work here as a regular intern without disclosing her identity. This was her decision, born from a desire to truly understand the fabric of Horizon Corp from the ground up, to experience the unfiltered realities of our operations, and to grow through genuine experience, not inherited privilege." A low murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. Manager Lin, whose perfectly coiffed blonde hair and impeccably tailored suits were usually an impenetrable fortress of composure, now looked as if she'd seen a ghost. Her face, usually a mask of haughty confidence, was pale and drawn, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning mortification. The casual dismissals, the cutting remarks, the unspoken disdain she had always harbored for Mai's lack of ambition now hung in the air, heavy with accusation. She shifted uncomfortably, her gaze flickering to the floor as if seeking refuge from the overwhelming truth.
The marketing team, once so quick with their snide jokes about Mai's outdated phone and simple lunches, now stood with expressions of abject embarrassment etched onto their faces. Their petty cruelties now felt like direct affronts to the very man who signed their paychecks. The internal espionage plot, now brought into full, searing light, was the next revelation. Mr. Thompson's voice deepened, taking on a gravitas that commanded absolute attention. However, there was a far more critical reason for Mai's undercover presence. For some time, I've detected unsettling irregularities in our investment projects. It became clear that someone within our ranks was leaking sensitive internal information to a rival competitor, causing significant financial damage and eroding our market standing. It was Mai, operating beneath the radar as an unassuming intern, precisely because no one gave her a second glance, who painstakingly uncovered these discrepancies in our financial reports, anomalies that even I, with all my oversight, had initially missed. Mr. Thompson's eyes, cold and piercing, locked onto Brandon, who visibly flinched, shrinking further into himself. And what Mai meticulously uncovered, what her quiet diligence brought to light, led us unequivocally to a name, to an inside mole. As if on cue, two burly security officers who had been standing subtly near the elevator stepped forward. Their movements were swift and precise. Brandon, recognizing the inevitable, offered no resistance. His shoulders slumped, his once confident posture collapsing into a pathetic heap as the officers took his arms. He was a deflated balloon. His arrogance had been a mere illusion, now pricked by the needle of truth. He muttered something incoherent, a desperate plea perhaps, but it was swallowed by the sudden collective gasp that rippled through the onlookers.
Mai offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile. It wasn't a smile of triumph or vindication, but one of quiet satisfaction, a reflection of justice being served. Her gaze met Brandon's, briefly, coolly. There was no hatred in her eyes, no gloating, just a profound, unwavering clarity that spoke volumes of his downfall. Brandon, meeting her gaze, felt the full weight of his actions, a crushing realization of how deeply he had misjudged and underestimated the woman standing before him. He could only hang his head in shame, unable to bear the silent judgment in her eyes. The vague memory of the mysterious message Mai had received in the elevator, of her calm demeanor despite the unfolding crisis, suddenly clicked into place, forming a terrifyingly clear picture of her hidden purpose. The revelation of Mai's silent ally added another layer of intrigue and depth to the unfolding drama. Mr. Thompson then turned back to the stunned faces, a warm, knowing smile playing on his lips as his gaze settled on Mai. But Mai did not achieve this alone. "My dear," he said, extending a hand towards the end of the hallway, "would you care to introduce your silent ally?" Mai nodded, her eyes finding Mr. Jenkins, the elderly security guard who stood quietly by a fire exit, blending seamlessly into the background. He was a sentinel of the shadows, a man whose unassuming appearance belied a sharp mind and an even sharper moral compass. He had worked at Horizon Corp for over 30 decades, watching generations of employees come and go, observing the subtle shifts in corporate ethics, the slow creep of greed. He had seen the pattern of financial irregularities before, had watched as the company's integrity slowly eroded. But as a low-level employee, his warnings had always fallen on deaf ears, dismissed as the ramblings of an old man. His frustration, a quiet, simmering resentment, had been a constant companion. But then Mai had arrived, quiet, observant, untouched by the usual corporate ambition. He had seen a flicker of something different in her, a nascent integrity that resonated with his own. He had chosen her, instinctively, to carry the torch of truth. "It was Mr. Jenkins," Mai announced, her voice clear and resonant, carrying easily through the hushed hall, who provided the very first, crucial clues regarding the fraudulent procurement reports and some of Brandon's deeply suspicious activities. He had been meticulously observing Brandon for months, noticing his unusual patterns, his furtive phone calls, the late-night visits to secure areas. He trusted me with this information, seeing in me, perhaps, a way to finally bring justice to light. Mr. Jenkins offered a humble, almost shy bow, a gentle, knowing smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. His quiet dignity filled the space, a powerful contrast to Brandon's disgraced departure. Manager Lynn, witnessing this exchange, felt a cold dread intertwined with a scorching realization. She remembered her own brief, uncomfortable encounters with Brandon, his evasiveness when she questioned budget allocations, the subtle ways he'd tried to divert her attention from certain reports. She recalled a particularly strained conversation about a past project where her department had incurred unexpected losses that now, in hindsight, pointed directly to Brandon's manipulation. Her earlier haughtiness had protected her from seeing the truth, and now a wave of profound shame washed over her. Her initial shock transformed into a seething anger at Brandon, and then slowly into a reluctant admiration for Mai. This wasn't just about a rich girl playing a game. This was about a clever, courageous young woman who had seen the rot and taken silent, decisive action. The corporate facade had cracked, and the raw, complex emotions of its players were finally laid bare. The implications of Mai's true identity and her role in exposing the betrayal would ripple through every corner of Horizon Corp, forever altering its landscape.
The aftermath of the elevator incident sent seismic tremors through Horizon Corp, reshaping its very foundation. The revelation of Mai's true identity, coupled with her pivotal role in unmasking Brandon, ripped through the office like a whirlwind, carrying away the dust of complacency and false assumptions. The initial shock quickly morphed into a profound respect, bordering on awe for the unassuming intern who had quietly orchestrated such a monumental unmasking. Brandon, a pale, defeated specter, was swiftly processed by authorities, his once inflated ego deflated, his future a dark tunnel leading only to criminal charges for corporate espionage and fraud. Justice, often a slow grinding wheel, had turned with a satisfying swiftness, bringing a collective sigh of relief, even a quiet cheer, from corners of the office that had long chafed under his arrogance. Mai, despite the newfound attention, remained remarkably grounded. The quiet intensity that had defined her undercover days now simply shone brighter. She continued her work with the same diligent focus, but her voice, once almost a murmur, now carried authority in meetings. Her ideas, once dismissed or barely acknowledged, were met with an attentive silence, followed by genuine consideration. She leveraged her newfound visibility not for personal gain or retribution, but to subtly steer discussions towards the very systemic weaknesses she had identified. Her humility, far from being perceived as weakness, was now seen as a testament to her inherent strength and an unwavering commitment to the company's integrity, cementing the respect of even her staunchest critics. The ultimate crescendo, the true test of her mettle, arrived a few weeks later. Mr. Thompson convened an extraordinary board meeting, gathering all senior executives and Mai in the opulent, mahogany-paneled boardroom on the top floor, a room usually reserved for the most formidable battles of corporate strategy. The air was thick with anticipation, the hum of the city outside a distant whisper compared to the tension within. Mr. Thompson began resonating his voice with a quiet authority that filled the vast room. His gaze swept across the array of seasoned faces, finally resting on Mai, a proud gleam in his eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, after many years dedicated to steering Horizon Corp through both calm and turbulent waters, I believe the time has come for a new era of leadership, an era that embodies both our foundational values and the agility required for the future. A collective intake of breath rippled through the room. Everyone knew it was coming, yet the gravity of the moment hung palpable in the air. Just as Mr. Thompson prepared to make his final announcement, Mr. Dawson, a venerable board member whose silver hair and stern countenance seemed carved from the very stone of corporate tradition, cleared his throat. He was an old guard, a man who believed in seniority and established pathways and in the tangible weight of decades of experience. His skepticism of Mai, a young woman who had seemingly materialized out of nowhere to claim such a pivotal role, was thinly veiled. "Mr. Thompson," Mr. Dawson's voice boomed, cutting through the hushed anticipation like a sharpened blade. "We understand the imperative for renewal. However, the position of CEO, the very helm of this vast enterprise, demands more than just a fresh perspective. It demands a proven track record, a strategic mind tempered by years of navigating market storms. With all due respect, I believe the proposed successor, given her recent arrival, should demonstrate her capacity for executive leadership beyond merely uncovering an internal issue. Perhaps a comprehensive strategic plan, a vision for the future that reassures all stakeholders." His gaze, heavy with doubt and thinly disguised challenge, settled pointedly on Mai, a silent dare. The implication was clear. She was riding on her father's coattails, and he demanded she prove her worth not by birthright, but by battle.
A subtle ripple of unease ran through the room. Some board members, while perhaps acknowledging Mai's intelligence, harbored similar reservations, hidden beneath polite smiles. This wasn't just about Brandon anymore. It was about the very soul of Horizon Corp and who would wield its immense power. Mai, however, did not flinch. She stepped forward to the podium, her unassuming figure now radiating an unexpected gravitas. Her simple gray suit, once a symbol of her hidden status, now felt like a uniform of quiet power. Her eyes, magnified slightly by her glasses, met Mr. Dawson's unwavering gaze, then swept across the faces of every board member. "Mr. Dawson," she began, her voice clear, calm, and surprisingly resonant, carrying easily through the cavernous room. "I appreciate your candor, and I fully understand the gravity of your concerns. This company's future, its legacy, is paramount." And then she began to speak, not of theories or abstract concepts, but of the very bones and sinews of Horizon Corp. She spoke of the hidden inefficiencies she had observed in procurement, the missed opportunities in untapped markets, the sluggishness of their digital transformation efforts. She unveiled a meticulous, almost surgically precise analysis of the financial loopholes Brandon had exploited, detailing not just his methods, but how the existing systems had unwittingly facilitated them. Her words flowed, not as a rehearsed speech, but as a living blueprint, born from months of silent observation and deep immersion. She then shifted gears, her voice gaining an infectious enthusiasm as she articulated her vision for the future. She presented audacious yet meticulously researched strategies for market expansion, leveraging emerging technologies for enhanced data security and operational efficiency. She outlined a radical restructuring of the sales pipeline, promising not just incremental growth, but a paradigm shift in their industry standing. Each point was buttressed by meticulously gathered data, by insights gleaned from the company's lowest echelons, insights that no one else in that room, steeped in the ivory tower of executive privilege, could possibly have possessed. She proposed a new company culture, one built on transparency, merit, and a commitment to nurturing talent from within, lessons she had learned firsthand through hardship. She spoke not just as an analyst, but as a leader who had walked every floor, seen every corner, and understood the heartbeat of the organization. Her knowledge was encyclopedic, her conviction absolute. The simplicity of her presentation, devoid of corporate jargon and flashy theatrics, made her arguments even more compelling. She was not selling a dream. She was laying out a practical, achievable future. When Mai finally concluded, the vast boardroom was enveloped in a profound silence. It was not a doubt, but of stunned admiration. Mr. Dawson, the formidable traditionalist, sat motionless for a long moment, his stern features softened by a glimmer of genuine astonishment. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, his hand rose. He began to clap, a single deliberate sound that resonated through the quiet room. The rhythmic applause spread, first hesitantly, then with increasing fervor, until the entire room erupted in a roaring ovation. It was not just applause for a brilliant presentation. It was an acknowledgement of undeniable talent, of a vision born from genuine understanding, and of a leader who had earned her place not by birth, but by sheer undeniable merit.
"Mr. Thompson,
his eyes shining with a mixture of pride and profound relief, looked directly at Mai. A warm, paternal smile, rarely seen in such formal settings, spread across his face. And the person I trust with the profound capability, the unparalleled understanding, the visionary foresight, and above all, the unwavering integrity to lead Horizon Corp to its next great chapter is none other than my daughter, Mai. His voice swelled with emotion, filling the room. Effective today, Mai will officially assume the position of Chief Executive Officer of Horizon Corp. Mai stepped forward, her posture regal, her gaze piercing. She was no longer the faint shadow, the easily dismissed intern. She was the architect of change, the vanquisher of corruption, the inheritor of a legacy, and the visionary of a new future. The stark contrast between her humble beginnings and this triumphant elevation was breathtaking, a powerful testament to the adage that true worth is often hidden from plain sight. The sense of profound, satisfying catharsis rippled through every observer, a sweet symphony of justice and destiny. The story of the underestimated intern became an enduring legend within Horizon Corp, whispered in hushed tones in break rooms and boardrooms alike. It served as a perpetual, potent reminder, never, ever judge a book by its cover. And Mai, her remarkable transformation complete, now stood at the helm, ushering in an unprecedented era for Horizon Corp, an era defined by unwavering integrity, profound foresight, and a renewed commitment to its people, finally cleansing the company of the insidious problems that had festered unseen for so long. The true strength of a leader, she had proven, lay not in the title they held, but in the character they embodied and the unwavering light they brought to the darkest corners. Thank you, esteemed audience, for joining us on this incredible journey through the CEO's undercover daughter. What an inspiring tale of resilience, hidden talent, and ultimate triumph. We hope this story has resonated with you, perhaps reminding us all that true potential often lies beneath the surface, waiting for its moment to shine. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons did you take away? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our channel to support more captivating stories like this one. Thank you.